have chops, I swear.
Holy
shit. Oh my goodness. 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 A plane just crashed onto a
highway.
On a highway right
We're
in
gonna
front
pull
of
off.
us. Holy wow.
Secretary Sean Duffy calls it the golden age of travel. But is it really the golden age of abuse by the privileged? American people are sick and tired of the overvalued privileged being given higher priority than the welfare and well-being of families and children, and being lied to and deceived to believe that it is for their own good.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
The golden age of travel begins with you.
The U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy envisions a golden age of travel for all Americans. He highlights the convenience of airport gyms and often shares stories of his stunning wife or his fit daughter Paloma, who can knock out push-ups in mere seconds while navigating airport gyms. To prove his point, Secretary Duffy invites Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy, highlighting RFK's macho look to showcase health, longevity, and privilege as part of the initiative to make America healthy again. Secretary Duffy is asking his fellow Americans to bring civility back to travel. He tweets that American people should all dress like President Trump on the planes. Secretary Duffy also says the Trump administration is on board to expand low-flying planes, air taxis, and flying cars on what he calls
The golden age of travel begins with you.
He frequently mentions how the Trump's administration is cracking down on illegal immigrant thugs and foreign drivers who can't speak proper English, while endorsing Trump's inhumane ICE raids, where in some cases U.S. citizens have been wrongfully detained and interrogated. He says these practices are supposed to make Americans feel safe again. At first glance, it all sounds inspiring, designed to make Americans feel proud, secure, and hopeful. But as you peel back the layers, the incompetence, contradictions, hypocrisy, and double standards in Secretary Duffy's messages become more and more clear. The so-called golden age of travel increasingly feels like performance rather than policy, revealing either profound ignorance or deliberate gaslighting, echoing the abuses enabled by his predecessor, Pete Buttigieg, during the Biden administration. Secretary Duffy, FAA's next gen means hell for millions of Americans. You know it, your predecessor knew it, and yet nothing has been done to address the safety issues or toxic noise and air pollution dumped above residential communities at awfully low altitude. If you expect the American public to be respectful and civil, then it's time to extend the same basic civility to them, particularly to the millions who have been forced to live under FAA's low-flying yet toxic-spewing planes for more than a decade now. Secretary Duffy, you and your predecessor, Pete Buttigieg, have long been aware of the ongoing harms caused by the FAA's wasteful $45 billion next-gen program. Yet neither of you took meaningful action to address the harmful levels of noise and toxic air pollution that continue to ravage our lives. For years, aviation-impacted communities have reached out to your predecessor, Pete Buttigieg, and to you and other elected representatives and members of U.S. Congress. Countless emails, calls, and letters seeking relief from the environmental devastation and relentless noise caused by FAA's next-gen program, just to be blatantly ignored, dismissed, and even humiliated or shunned. This negligence, gaslighting, bullying, and profiteering have left the American public to shoulder the burden and endure the negative health consequences of this greed and profiteering. Secretary Duffy, in a world of junk politics, a little honesty goes far. So in the spirit of the new year, 2026, Let's call this a golden age of abuse by the privileged, which resembles savagery, thievery, and thuggery, where Americans are forced to privatize the skies above their homes, turning public airspace into a dangerous, foul, and noisy playground for the top 0.1% joyriding tyrants, while sacrificing the health, environment, and infrastructure of 99.9% impacted by these elites. Secretary Duffy, we are your fellow Americans who live 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, or more miles from an airport and are being held hostage in our homes by relentless aviation noise that has shattered our peace, stolen our sleep, and turned our backyards into uninhabitable, noisy playground. We did not choose to live near an airport, nor are we hypersensitive to noise. We understand that airports provide economic benefits. What we cannot understand is a system that allows airlines and general aviation to profit from exploitation of our residential communities, while millions of Americans on the ground suffer and bear the inhumane cost of FAA's low-flying, toxic spewing planes. We are Americans who do not feel safe at home because of rogue and dangerous aviation activity over residential areas that are improperly zoned. A relentless stream of low-flying planes, 65 decibels, 85 decibels to 130 decibels, passes overhead, low and loud, most of the time with no essential purpose, other than tormenting us, and with residents denied any voice, regulation, or recourse. Whether it's airlines exploiting the FAA's next-gen superhighways to save time, fuel, and costs by roaring at dangerously low altitudes over densely populated neighborhoods, or rogue GA pilots treating quiet communities as playgrounds for training and recreational purposes, these flights have no legitimate place above residential zone. They trample residential airspace, hijack housing zones for private profit and convenience, and amount to a de facto land grab over people's homes. These flight paths are disastrous, reckless, inhumane, and a clear violation of U.S. Constitution. Nearly every school, restaurant, hospital, park, playground, and quiet residential neighborhoods in the U.S. is under FAA's next-gen concentrated flight paths, no matter how far one lives from an airport. Secretary Duffy, your silence, like that of your predecessor Pete Buttigieg, is not ignorance. It appears predatory and tone-deaf to the needs of communities impacted by airlines and rogue aviation players. You want Americans to dress well when arriving at airports? Then respect your population and allow the public and our children to sleep peacefully in their homes. Over 30 countries have banned America's toxic food supply. Yet FDA continues to allow bovine growth hormones, toxic GMOs, additives, preservatives, chemicals, hydrogenated vegetable oils, carcinogens, herbicides, and pesticides in most of U.S. food supply. Isn't it blatant hypocrisy to lecture Americans about being healthy and sharp while the very food on their dinner plates is banned in more than 30 countries? In addition to our toxic food supply, we are chronically sleep deprived. American people suffer from tinnitus, hearing damage, cognitive decline, nervous system disorder, hypertension, anxiety, depression, constant anticipation of noise, and sleep apnea caused by relentless plane noise. Most days we are exhausted, unable to rest, work, or enjoy the safety and serenity of our homes. For many of us, our homes have become our personal hell. Research shows that long-term exposure to aircraft noise above 45 decibel near airports is linked to higher body mass index, BMI, increased obesity, and greater cardiovascular risk, particularly in women and children. The FAA is exposing the American public to unsafe level of plane noise, damaging us neurologically, physically, and mentally. Residents living near major airport hubs and general aviation airports are being forced to absorb the fallout. Relentless noise, toxic air pollution, and a contaminated food supply as pollutants seep into our soil, air, and groundwater. These communities are paying with their health for non-stop aviation activity they never consented to. America's working class is under relentless pressure, juggling multiple jobs, suffocating under inflation, eating nutrient-deficient and often dead foods. Now, on top of everything else, we are being tortured in our overly inflated homes by constant roar of planes overhead. What used to be a sanctuary, our homes, has become ground zero for FAA's low-flying planes, screaming overhead, unleashing warlike noise with zero regard for the people below. Add to that the mounting safety threats. Small planes crashing into residential neighborhoods, repeated safety breaches, and near misses or mid-air collisions, and it's clear this isn't just inconvenience or nuisance, it's systemic abuse of the communities forced to live under it. If the well-being of our children, working men and women truly mattered, attention would be focused on the devastating effects of these continuous flights over homes and schools, and noise mitigation, noise ordinance, or meaningful local control over airports. At nights, our children come to our rooms in tears, terrified by scary sounds they hear outside, yet they are expected to attend school the next morning after a night without sleep. Exhausted, they struggle to concentrate on school or homework when they return home. That is under constant plane assault. This is happening because the FAA, predatory port authorities, and rogue pilots retaliate against communities that speak up, singling out citizen advocates and subjecting entire neighborhoods to non-stop aerial bombardment, day and night, a form of punishment for resistance. Secretary Duffy, the FAA's next-gen crisis demands immediate attention now and accountability, and it must start at the top. Unlike the airline industry and powerful aviation lobby groups, the American public do not have hundreds of millions of dollars each year to bribe members of U.S. Congress or the FAA. FAA's next-gen program is a disaster. It has devastated American residential communities and must be reversed. Rugged leaders like you, and the administrations before you, who were entrusted to protect the public. Instead, you have betrayed our trust, sold out our airspace, contaminating our food and water supply, offshoring American manufacturing jobs overseas, and burdening American families with higher costs of living alongside environmental and health crises. Just like Bill Clinton, who betrayed the American public under NAFTA by offshoring American union jobs. Over the years, China owed America more than $40 trillion in trade, only for the Trump administration's trade wars to further harm our farmers, manufacturers, and businesses, further devaluing our currency. Meanwhile, Wall Street financiers, financial capitalists, and corporate and political elites are busy gambling on cryptocurrency, meme coins, and stock market manipulation schemes, pure profiteering dressed up as innovation, all for their own power and political gain. They throw Gatsby-themed parties on the taxpayer's dime, while millions of Americans scrape by, struggling to survive or relying on food stamps. The disconnect isn't accidental, it's contempt for the American working class. No one is even asking the obvious question. What happened to the $40 trillion China paid through trade with the US? Where did that money actually go? Why are our bridges crumbling, airports crowded, under-maintained and chaotic, our transit systems failing, and our infrastructure still stuck in decay instead of being rebuilt with those funds? Just like FAA stealing $45 billion taxpayers' money to impose concentrated noise superhighways over our homes, prioritizing corporate efficiency while destroying residential quality of life and health. Someone cashed out, and it clearly wasn't the American public. Secretary Duffy, it's time to ground the top 0.1% of joyriding tyrants and subsidies for general aviation airports. Stop abusing residential zoning for profiteering. Raise the altitude of the planes. Reroute next-gen flight paths away from dense populations. Move recreational flights and practicing pilots to a remote area, and prioritize and invest in real public transportation for all Americans, like China's maglev, modern airports they build outside city limits in record time, or comprehensive public transit networks they construct within days before building an entire city. China is at least 50 years ahead of the US in housing, public transportation, and manufacturing. China recently tested a magnetic levitation, maglev, train that reached speeds over 620 miles per hour, faster than commercial airplanes, connecting major cities with rural areas. China's maglev makes virtually no noise. It runs on magnetic levitation with no friction and uses clean, renewable energy. In contrast, America's infrastructure and transportation systems remain outdated and neglected, a failure fueled by members of Congress and a complicit federal and local government. Secretary Duffy, it is time to restore basic justice for the millions of Americans forced to bear the devastating health and environmental costs of the FAA's next-gen efficiency at the expense of their own well-being. American people need your action, not fitness shows, PR stunts, incompetence, broken promises, or empty words. citizens. Stop paying the lip service and step up now. Protect your environment, protect your children, protect your home, and protect your community. Be the activist who pushes back when FAA and aviation industry cross the line. Thank you for your support.